Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Thank you so much for joining us along for the ride here. We got a good show for you today. Several different guests coming through the studio talking about a number of different things. If you're new to What's Working, here's what you need to know. What's Working is the radio show / podcast designed to give you insights into the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends that are going on around you. I'm trying to find the guests that can talk to us about the trends in such a way that we can learn from them and apply the lessons learned to some part of our lives, whether it be our business, our family, whatever it may be. The goal is just to get a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. Again, welcome and thank you for joining along for the ride. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the fifth segment of today's show is going to be, and we'll then talk about what's upcoming in segment 2. David Webb is back in the studio this time to talk about the influences of AI, of artificial intelligence, on what he predicts to be the work world and the marketplace going forward. David is of the belief that artificial intelligence needs to be controlled. It needs to be reined in perhaps a little bit. It needs to be monitored by our society for fear of it getting out of control. So David leaves us today with a 3-minute segment towards the tail end of the show of his opinions about artificial intelligence. My personal belief is it's going to be hard to get artificial intelligence back in the bag. You cannot put this genie back in the bottle. And there are a lot of people, David being one of them, that says we need to figure out ways to regulate this technology. As marvelous as it is, we need to figure out ways to regulate this technology because it has a potential for harm, for taking people out of the jobs that they've had for years and increasing turnover, things of this nature. My belief is they've said this about every new technology. They said it about a typewriter. They said it about a computer. They said it about the steam engine. They said it about the car, whatever it may be, any sort of new technology. As people saw it coming in, they said this one's going to be the one that's going to put all of us out of business, and the businesses recoiled out of fear. I believe that, hey, this stuff, this artificial intelligence is the next thing. It's just like the car, the typewriter, etc., perhaps a greater impact, but we're going to have to live with it. And learning to control it is actually not going to work very well. That's my Cam Marston opinions, because somebody's going to break the rules, and because they break the rules, they're going to get an unfair advantage. So we'll get into that with David Webb in segment 5. Here's what we're going to get when we come back from break. Trey Langus has been an advertiser on this show for years. Very loyal guy, and I'm grateful for that. Trey works with Transworld Business Advisors, and his role in that lengthy title with Transworld Business Advisors, his role is to find businesses to buy and find buyers for those businesses. So Trey spends an extraordinary amount of time meeting with people who are largely private business owners and are ready to step away for whatever reason. It could be retirement. It could be that they're just tired of that job, whatever it may be. So Trey is scouring businesses, communities all up and down the Gulf Coast, looking for opportunities and finding a buyer that's ready to sell his or her business. Trey is also always in touch with buyers looking to buy businesses. And while I've talked to Trey about this a number of different times, it's always very interesting how it works and the businesses that he finds and how he finds them. What I've not done is sat down between him, Trey, and a customer, a buyer of the business, to listen to how the transaction happened, how Trey partners the buyer with the appropriate business, how Trey works with the business owner to get the business ready to sell. So when we come back from break, I'll have Trey Langus with me and his customer, Trey Galloway. Trey Galloway is a recent customer of Trey's and is now the owner of a small business with 2 locations, one in Mobile, one on the Eastern Shore. And it was to hear them talk about it, beautiful transaction between the two of them, the previous business owner to the current business owner, all the finances lined up, etc. We'll learn specifically how that worked when we get back from break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Again, glad you're on for the ride. We'll be right back after a few short messages with Trey Langus and Trey Galloway's. A couple of Treys, a pair of Treys. We'll be right back.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
We're back in the studio today. I'm sitting next to Trey Langus, and I'm sitting across from Trey Galloway. We got two Treys in the studio today, and we're going to tell the story of buying and selling a business. And we're going to go about this, gentlemen, as if there's somebody out there that's in the position you were, Trey Galloway, not too long ago, saying, hey, I'm ready to control my own future. We're going to talk about the research that Trey Langus does as he finds these businesses to sell. And we're going to talk about the transaction between the two of you, because there's no denying the demographics that we see, that I see on a regular basis, saying all these baby boomers are beginning to think about exiting, and there should be a plethora of businesses out there for sale in the short term. Let's start with you, Trey Langus. Give me a little bit about your background and what it is that you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Cam, and thank you, Trey Galloway, for having me with you guys today. Excuse me. You know, I spent many years in the logistics business doing transportation work, and then went to living in New Orleans, doing real estate development work for many years, and really wanted to raise my family back here in Mobile. But Mobile just didn't have the quite skill set that I had kind of groomed over those years. And so it didn't have the luxury of having opportunities for me to get involved with. So when I moved to Mobile in 2008, mind you, the market was crashing. It was probably the worst time to make a decision along that run. But anyway, we barreled on and we got to Mobile. We started looking for opportunities. And what I found was the quickest and easiest way to find an opportunity for yourself was through operating businesses. And so I began searching websites and so forth for the opportunity to make an acquisition. I wanted to work for myself.
So you got to this business of being a business buyer and seller from the point of view of a guy who was trying to buy a business of his own.
That's exactly right. And I think that's why I'm so helpful. At least I like to selfishly think that way, because I see when buyers call me, I know innately what they're looking for. I know the struggles that comes with that too. And I know the difficulty of finding an opportunity or something that does excite you. So in Trey's regard, we had talked, I guess, over a period of probably 8 years, give or take, back and forth. And it just happened to be good timing when he had called me about a different business, and we had another opportunity for him, and that's kind of where that started to work out.
So your title right now, Trey Langus, is what?
I'm a business advisor, or business broker is how they term me. So I'll handle the business acquisitions or sales, and I also handle the real estate component along with that regard.
So to give the listeners the end before, you facilitated a transaction with Trey Galloway, and we're going to talk about that transaction as we go through. Trey Galloway, you were in a position, whenever it was, that made you think, I want to control my own destiny. Tell me a little bit about that, and get right into that microphone as you get started.
Sure. Thank you, Cam, for having me on here, and thank you, Trey, for being here. So, as Trey alluded to, I was a 26-year corporate sales rep, and I knew nothing but sales. That's all I'd ever done. I'd sold various and sundry products over, like I said, a 26-year time period. And COVID comes along and completely destroys my business. And overnight, my income got cut by about 80%. And so I'm looking at, I've got a family to support, a little boy about to start private school. And so I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do here? And I looked at other sales jobs and didn't really find anything I was interested in. And I'd always had this, I guess you would say, fantasy of owning my own small business with a storefront where people would come to me and I wasn't chasing a quota every month. And my wife's uncle has had different retail stores over the years that I've sort of watched from afar, and that always interested me. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I Googled small businesses for sale in Mobile. And a business popped up that interested me, and I looked down below, and Trey Langus' name in picture is there as the broker. Well, ironically, about 8 years, like he said before that, I had lunch with him and told him I wanted to buy a small business one day. Well, here his picture is again. And I called him, and he was on his way to Tuscaloosa for Parents Weekend, and he said, let's talk next week, but I want you to do me a favor. And I said, sure, what's that? He said, well, there's a business that came across my desk yesterday that I think you really might like, and it's a really interesting, neat little business. I want you to go look at this vitamin company out on Schillinger Road. And I immediately said, vitamin company? And he said, yeah, just go see what you think. So my wife, my 3-year-old at the time, and I rode out to the vitamin company on Schillinger Road, and we just kind of sat there and watched, and 31 people walked in the door in 30 minutes. And my wife looked at me and she said, this is what you need to do. Make it happen. And so over the next 4 or 5 months, I talked to some mentors I have, some attorneys, some bankers, my accountant, some business analysts, and every one of them looked at it and said, this is a great deal.
Trey Galloway, I'm going to pause you there. I want to go back to Langus. Langus, Trey Langus, how did you find this business? So what we're trying to teach the listener is, how does this work? So you've got this place, it's called the Health Hut out on Schillinger Road here in Mobile. How did you come about them?
Yeah, this one in particular, to be quite honest, I'm not really certain, but I will tell you how we typically do things. We, through multiple forms of advertising, we'll do drop letters, we'll do mailers, we'll have so forth mailers. We'll actually make phone calls to certain businesses. I've done that for many, many years, businesses that we think may be opportunistic or so forth. We also have within our what I would call our wheelhouse, our corporate wheelhouse, we've got close to 700 or so, give or take, advisors out there. So we see kind of the industry momentums that are taking effect across the country. So we'll know things to kind of dial in and focus on. And in this case, Jeff Sheldon, who's a fabulous business owner, when he brought this to us, we just knew it was a great opportunity. It's a business that had been around for many, many, many years. His financials were in order. They were extremely clean. We just knew that was a good opportunity. So when Trey called me, I thought, well, my goodness, there couldn't be a better position to be in if you finding a business of this size, it's this clean and continuously spitting off cash flow.
Is the Health Hut a franchise?
No, it's not.
It's a locally owned company.
Locally owned. Now, they do have 2 locations in this regard. They've also got one in Daphne that does very, very well, too.
Yeah.
So 2 locations at the same time, very clean financials, just a great opportunity for a new buyer.
So somewhere out there, there's a business owner right now who's thinking, okay, at some point I'm going to want to sell my business. What exactly do clean financials mean?
Yeah, clean financials typically mean for us that the business is working with a third-party professional, usually CPAs and accountants. It's not absolutely necessary, but I would say, highly encouraged. In Jeff's case, I think he provided most of the data with Health Hut directly by himself. He's an extremely sharp guy. But what we do find is with these third-party professionals, the process moves a lot quicker. The sellers being extremely busy as they are, having to talk after hours, it gives me another third-party professional to obtain and answer questions that the buyers are looking for in a timely manner. Again, ambiguity is not the goal. What we're trying to do is get clear responses and quickly.
Had this business owner been running his business with the intention to sell, and that was the reason the numbers were clean?
No. Let me tell you, Jeff was a very sharp business owner. He just preferred it that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's more of a personality thing. It's not necessary one way or the other. But I will say it to you this way. If you're going to take a business to get the most optimal value out of the business, the one thing you want to do is run the cleanest books as you possibly can. So when you get ready to prepare to sell, and we work with many sellers in this regard years before they actually go to market, but we want to make sure that those financials are clean.
Got it. Trey Galloway, You saw 31 people come through in a 30-minute window, I think is what you said.
That's exactly right.
Did you see this as this is a business I can grow, or this is a business that is ready right now, that growth opportunities are going to be limited? Because 31 people in 30 minutes seems like a good number to me.
The answer to that question is yes to both of those things. I had seen the financials. I knew that the business was doing very well. I knew it had been around 39 years, but I also knew it was very antiquated and there was very little marketing taking place, which was my not only degree, but my background. That's what I used to do for other businesses. So I understood that industry very well. And I saw an opportunity to come into a business that's doing great already and just put a little spin on it. And that's what we've done. I mean, it's going phenomenal.
So you saw a business that was ready to grow. You saw or an opportunity to use your marketing skills. You said you did some due diligence. Now, knowing Trey Langus here wants to sell you the business, right? And he's going to give you a good pitch. Who did you pick to do some external due diligence outside of Trey Langus?
Well, let me first say that knowing Trey as well as I did, I 100% trusted everything he said to be true. And and
you can't see the expressions in the room, folks.
No, but I mean that. And I also quickly, it was a very unique situation in that I got to be good friends with Jeff, the current owner. We were the same age. Trey had said the whole time, you guys are going to hit it off. And I mean, honestly, I was going there and working some before we even closed the deal. I mean, he was that nice of a guy, wanted to make sure that the business prospered, and he was willing to teach me before we even closed on the business. Now, I have some older gentlemen that I talk to about different things that have owned businesses that I call my mentors, and I took it to them. I have numerous relationships with attorneys through my previous employer and accountants, bankers, just a close kind of niche that I have of people.
We'll join it again when we get back from break. I'm in the studio today. Trey Galloway, a new business owner. Trey Langus, a business seller. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Cam Marston. My What's Working radio show has given me a front row seat to what's going on in today's workplace and workforce. I'm taking what I've learned and delivering it as a live presentation. If your company, team, or association is looking for a speaker to kick off or wrap up your event, check out my presentations at my website, cammarston.com, or find me on YouTube to watch some sample videos. You can expect actionable and relevant content delivered with lots of humor. On my site, you can find my client list and testimonials. I welcome your calls and your emails. Reach out. Let's find a way to deliver fresh, thought-provoking, actionable content to your event. Sitting with Cajun Mike, owner E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, there are people I know that think their house is fully protected because there's some bait stations around the house. What's your thoughts?
My thought personally is bait stations do work. However, I do not believe in them as a standalone product.
What else do they need?
We do 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 treatments on the house. We will do a true liquid perimeter treatment. We do hollow void treatments, and we use bore care on wood when we can access it.
It's a thorough treatment, top to bottom, it sounds like, much more so than the bait station.
That is correct.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
They can find me at 251-850-PEST or e3pest.com.
e3pest.com. In the studio today, this is Cam Marston. You're listening to What's Working. I'm sitting next to Trey Langus and across from Trey Galloway. Trey Langus sold, and his role as a business broker, Trey Galloway, a business called the Health Hut out on Schillinger Road, if you're in the Mobile area, and another one over in Daphne. Is that correct? Both of those
That's
involved
right.
in the transaction?
On Highway 90 in Daphne.
And was the broker involved? He facilitated the process. And Trey, when the mics were off a moment ago, you said there are 2 questions that you, this is Trey Langus, 2 questions you ask a one question of a buyer and one question of a seller, which gauges, for your point of view, how ready they are for the transaction. Tell me those two questions again.
Yeah, that's great. So we have a lot of businesses at Transworld for sale. So what helps me is understanding from the buyer's point. There are certain things that they are looking for. They're looking for income, or they're looking for upside. They're looking for scalability, and so forth and so on. For me, the very first thing I need to understand from a buyer is what gets them excited. If I can't get excited, I know deep down it's hard to be successful at something that you can't get excited about. So I need to see that excitement. I need to see your blood boiling a little bit. Believe it or not, that seems very simplistic, but it is very vital in these transactions. On the seller side, it's just as simple also. What I'm looking for, and that doesn't matter if it's a $15 million business or a $15,000 business, I need to understand, or I want to understand, what the seller's plan is post-sale. Because I've had a couple of situations, quite a few situations, where you get to the tail end of a deal, we get to a closing, and it becomes more emotional than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And so if we have certain things already kind of detailed out, understanding what you're going to do post-closing, that's key there.
So excited, and what your plans are afterwards.
That's correct.
And if you look at the buyer and he or she says, it'll do. I've looked at the business. It'll do. It's not exactly what I hoped for, but it'll do. Do you proceed with the buyer at that point?
No, I'd rather, my selfish point of view is to find something that really gets somebody excited about it. I just know look, I've been there. The reason I'm able to help buyers, the reason I'm able to work well with sellers, because I understand exactly where they are. I have been there. I've felt it. It can be very tense. There are certain things that you're looking for in these acquisitions. We like to accomplish all of those, but it really cannot start unless it gets your blood going, it gets you excited about the opportunity. Then I know we'll get to a closing if that's the case.
And talk to me about the seller's point of view. You said if they don't have a plan, then you don't choose to not proceed.
Yeah, and that one I've kind of learned over time. But one thing that's really special about a lot of these proprietors out there and these businesses is there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. There's many, many hours that go unaccounted for and unpaid for. These folks have a real emotional connection to their business. It's not just fiscal. It's an emotional reaction to their business. It's their baby. They built it, so they want to make certain, number one, that it's going to go on off into the future, still be successful. By doing that, we need to make certain that we've got the right buyers in place, so forth and so on. So those are the little nuances that we do look for in trying to have a successful transaction.
Yeah, so if that seller does not have a clear plan for what's next, you think there's going to be some baggage with this thing, or they're going to get to the moment of the close and realize, goodness, if this transaction takes place, I'll have nothing to do.
Well, and I have experienced that. And the flip side, let me tell you, I cannot express how important it is when you do start to get up in age, coming up with some kind of a plan to exit out. Whether that involves me or not, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. The important thing is to have a plan. Well, we've seen multiple businesses actually completely age out, where the main sole proprietor there, the main money maker there, gets sick or passes away and so forth. There was no exit plan.
Yeah.
Okay. And the business it closes down. So that's the main thing. We want to prevent that for certain.
Trey Galloway, when you walked into that door, I know you saw foot traffic that day, those 31 people. What else made you excited about the business?
Well, I noted, first off, it had been around 39 years, so I knew they were doing something right. And I quickly saw how much each employee seemed to get along with the other employees. And it really, this is very cliche, but it had a family atmosphere. And what I found, there were 4 employees there, Cam, that had been there 20 plus years.
Oh,
There's
really?
one lady that's been there 27 years, and my head manager at the cylinder store, Jeff, he's been there since he was 18, and he's about to turn 40.
No kidding.
So I realized that, these guys, they had this fearless leader in Jeff, the previous owner, for 11 years. And Jeff's one of the smartest guys, one of the smartest businessmen I've ever met. And, I did not I didn't have any experience running a business. I didn't have any experience managing employees. But what I did know how to do is to, as Trey keeps saying, get people excited. And I came in and brought a spin of what I used to do in my corporate world on a team aspect. And I brought that to the Health Hut. And, we have a lot of goals as a team. I'm very transparent about the kind of volume the business does, and I give back to the employees. And, we came in and we started running billboard campaigns. We built a custom website that was optimized so it appears in Google searches. We hired a full-time social media lady. And before you know it, there were 6 or 7 new customers walking in the door every single day that had never been in the store before. And these employees started seeing an energy that they had never seen before, because I get pretty excited and I love setting a goal and achieving it. And that all's kind of spread to the employees. And we have people that walk in the door now that just kind of go, wow. And it's been a pretty neat thing to watch unfold.
I use this term not literally, but you had to sell yourself to those long-term employees.
Without a doubt. And I hate to say I had to get rid of several of them too that had been there a while, just because they were not, they didn't like the new regime. They
were not on board.
There you go.
So, what was that process like? You obviously your social media campaign, your billboards, it's resulted in new foot traffic. What else was involved in selling yourself to these new employees?
That I'm a straightforward guy, and I'm not here to blow smoke. And what I mean, I say what I mean, and I'm an honest fella that. I want everybody to benefit when the store benefits. We did some things that hadn't been done before that benefited the employees, and they got excited about that. And we're able to, help some of the employees with some things they had going on that, not everybody even knows about, but just, basically just being myself and being very transparent and trying to help everyone as much as I can, which in turn helps me and in the long run helps the customer.
Trey Langus, now if these employees had gotten a whiff of the business being for sale, or perhaps they did, I know one of the things that you offer, what I'm leading to, is confidentiality. I have a part of that you advertise on this show, and a couple of your ads emphasize that this is a very confidential situation or confidential conversation. Talk to me about the significance of confidentiality and why it matters so much.
Yeah, it's a tremendous component to the overall transaction. Everybody that calls in to look at any business that we've got listed at Transworld, we're going to obtain an NDA. We're a non-disclosure agreement, something that basically says, hey guys, we're going to keep our mouth shut. Why it's so important? And Trey's regard, it was a little bit of a smoother transaction because the seller kind of embraced him and they kind of buddied up. But what we really see more than not, 99% of the time, is we want to keep this as confidential as possible and as far away from the employees as possible. Because if you're going to have a hiccup there, it's during that transition, losing any labor force that you do have at the time. So that's the main key for the disclosure portion.
Is to keep it confidential, to keep the employees from knowing.
Yeah, because what we're looking for is a smooth transition. With every deal we do, we look for usually a minimum of about a 30-day transition where the seller kind of grooms the buyer. So you have a kind of an easy turnover. They are introduced to the employees and so forth and so on. There's one other nuance to this, too. We also pay very close to competitors that are out there. So if I've got a competitor that's kind of snooping around, then I'm looking for some certain agreements there to make certain that they're not trying to get into proprietary information.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
So if the confidentiality is breached in some way or another, is your experience, does it spoil the deal or does it just make it a rockier transition?
Well, a lot of times it's a rockier transition. Trey and we had a little bit of a booger-boo not that long ago, but I would say that overall, what you're just trying to do is keep everything as calm as possible. What we find is when employees learn of an external factor going on, then you get kind of a stinking thinking between the ears. All we're trying to do is prevent that, to give the new buyer an opportunity to introduce themselves and bring some rapport to the table before there's any drop-off and so forth.
Does your business, Trey Langus, offer any sort of tools or assistance to getting buy-in from the new employees? So Trey Galloway sounds like he did a great job. He made some difficult decisions shortly in there. But is there anything you could have done or would have done to say, hey, this is a typical part of the process, and here's something that we as an organization offer that will help this transition?
Well, not so much exactly, but we do work hand in hand with the sellers too throughout that process. And usually we are involved from a conversational standpoint on how this introduction is going to be made to the new buyer. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot you can do. It's pretty black and white from the standpoint that once there's a transition, that's the transition. But if the seller does a good job and introduces the buyer and works with them for that period of what we call usually a 30-day period, we tend to find that works just fine.
Yeah. Trey Galloway, looking back on it, was there any transaction or any part of the transition that you felt could have been done a little bit differently when it comes to meeting that new team? No, not at all. I think it went extremely smooth. And one thing about what we were talking about earlier, I needed some coaching because this is a very specialized business. And let's get into that coaching when we get back from break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri. Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. In the studio today, I've got 2 Treys with me. It sounds like I'm on an airplane. I got Trey Langus. He is a buyer and seller or a business broker. And I'm talking with one of his customers, Trey Galloway, who recently was on the transaction side with Trey and is now the owner of the Health Hut. Trey Galloway, when was that transaction made?
August 15th of 22, about 9 months ago.
9 months ago. So it's still a very much a new business owner. Trey Galloway, prior to the break, you were talking about you needing some coaching, and that really piqued my ears. We ran out of time. Let's pick that up. What do you mean needed coaching?
2 different things. One, I had never run a business. I mean, I got a decent head on my shoulders, but I had never run a business. Well, the previous owner, Jeff, who got to be one of my good friends and is a very close friend to this day, stuck around for 30 days, and he taught me as much as he possibly could about everything he had learned over the 11 years he owned the business, which was just a tremendous help and something I'll be forever grateful for. But we're a retail vitamin and supplement, essential oil, herbs, and health food store. Well, I had zero experience with any of this. And when someone comes into a store like ours especially, the reason people come in there is because our people are so educated and they can talk about every single product we have in there and the benefits and what you should do and why you should do it. Well, I didn't know any of that, and I still don't. I'm learning every day. But the employees, along the lines of what we were talking about earlier, embraced me. They could tell I was a decent person and that I meant well and I was trying to do right by everybody, but I just need a little coaching as far as the product lines. And, you know, I know enough to be dangerous now.
Yeah.
You know, I love nothing more than spending a Saturday out there on the floor and selling product. I mean, that's what I've always done. And I continue to learn every day. When I first bought the business, I spent from 5:30 in the morning till 7:30 every morning studying a book that the previous owner had given me. It's called Nature's Plus University, and it was a spiral binder that was like a textbook. And I quickly realized I wasn't learning a lot from that and that I would do better listening to these employees on the floor. And so I started spending all my time out on the floor when I wasn't paying bills and things like that. And, you know, it's really started to click here as of late. And I'm having a ball, man. I've never had this much fun in my life. And it's as much fun to watch these employees get excited as it is for me. And we're having a good time and we're doing some good things.
So when you look at the amount of business knowledge you've gained over the last 9 months as a newly arrived business owner, willingly thrust into this role, what's the next hurdle you face? What is the next thing? So product knowledge, and goodness knows you must have 10,000 SKUs on the floor. What is the next?
That's actually close.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I was exaggerating, but I'm actually
It's not
accurate.
quite 9.
Yeah.
But it's right there.
What is the next big thing that you've got in front of you as you look at taking this business to the next level? You were excited when you saw those 31 people come in. You've implemented some things quickly on social media and different advertising methods, and you're saying, okay, here's what's next as I try to grow this business. You've got 2 locations. Do you see a third? Do you see a fifth? What's the plan?
Yes, but I have learned, and Trey and I've actually looked at adding a location that we decided against because I realized that I've got such a good thing going, but I'm just local. Why not take what I have and make it global? And what I mean by that is we don't have anything available for sale online. And that's where we're missing out on a ton of business. And that's why I built the custom website I did. And that's why I'm putting in a brand new POS system. And I'm not going to give a time frame, but that's my next hurdle, is to get all 9,000 SKUs, to which Cam alluded earlier, available for sale online, where my sister, who's a dentist in Kentucky, can buy all of her supplements from me.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone else I know, and then everyone else that sees our social media ads, and it spirals. And I think that, I hate to say the sky's the limit, but I think we have a really good opportunity here. So
you're going to use your marketing and sales skills now to build the online store eventually, once that gets ready.
Sooner than later.
Yeah. So I'll take a little sidebar here. I think the show prior to this one was a guy named Brad Davidson, if I can remember correctly. He's a health and fitness guy. And I heard his presentation not long ago at a conference in South Georgia. And I was never a supplement guy, and came away from his presentation going, oh my goodness, I didn't realize what opportunity there is for increased health and vitality using things like this, and spent an hour, paid for his time, spent an hour with him on the phone, and have come away since a disciple of the value of these things. So I think there's been some consternation given to health and supplements out there. I'm now a big disciple of it, a true believer of it, and it's been impactful to me. I take a handful of them every morning, and I'm grateful for them. And it sounds as if, Trey Langus, the work that you guys do at Transworld maybe identifies these trends such that you can say at the corporate level, people can say, hey, we see the shift coming towards people moving more into the supplement space. Is that reasonable?
Well, a little bit, but we don't, as a company, we don't really get that specific into an industry like that. We do look at the health and the viability and the long-term viability of these businesses, that fitting that case for sure. But we don't look at it that specifically mostly.
Okay, so you're not able to say, hey, we sense in the marketplace nationally there's this trend moving towards pet grooming, and we need to be out there ready to represent pet grooming, or there's a trend out there of alternative roofing materials or something like that.
You know, our experience is there are so many businesses out there. We've got this baby boom age that's getting to the point where I think we're going to have a surplus of businesses at some point come available, that it's not so much necessary to get so specific into an industry kind of goal setting or future opportunity type concepts. They are out there. I love seeing a business that I can consider scalable. There's not many that are scalable. This one happens to be. I've got two others, but most of the time people think their businesses are scalable. They're really not. But from our standpoint, what we're looking for is an opportunity to help a customer, whether they're on the exit side, they want to sell their business and get them geared up and planned and ready to do that, or on the buy side, try to help supplement and help them look for an opportunity like we did in Trey's case.
Is there regionality expertise that's helpful here? So you have roots here in South Alabama. You have connections in New Orleans. Is there any reason that people should seek somebody with regional roots versus this is all spreadsheet stuff? Anybody can look at it anywhere. Well,
I'll be the first to tell you that if it's up and down the Gulf Coast, you want Transworld to be involved. Our office here basically handles Panhandle of Florida all the way to Baton Rouge. And then we have Transworld affiliates throughout the United States that kind of connect on that. From our perspective, though, geographically, it is important to be in that area. But I would say to you that it doesn't have to be that way. I've got an engineering firm being sold in Texas right now. I did a gas supply business in California a year before that and so forth. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in this area. But I will tell you it's a lot easier when you're trying to introduce buyers and sellers if I've only got a 2-hour drive.
That's a good point. So there are people listening in Huntsville, in Decatur, in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
You can help them out. Particularly if they want to buy a business on the beach.
Yeah, and what we really notice, especially since COVID, is overwhelmingly the buyers out there seem to be coming from, much further away than this area. We're, Chicago and Minnesota and Kentucky's and, that kind of sold a business to a guy in Louisiana last year from Montana. So there's a lot of folks around the country looking for opportunities. I think a lot of them are looking for opportunities in the South, too. The cost of living's cheaper, so forth and so on. So I think, we can help people. I prefer to be kind of close to home from the standpoint that, I can see faces and meet and touch hands and so forth. But, we have the ability to do things nationally.
So we talk about this massive baby boomer shift out of business ownership, selling that business. Are there dates expected? Have you ever seen anything that says, by the year, what are we in, 2023? By the year 2030, there will be no baby boomer business owners out there. So they're going to start shucking these things in the next 5-7 years. Have you seen anything along those lines?
Well, not that definitive, but we do see quite a large number of baby boomers out there that are reaching that retirement age. And they're going to need to come up with a strategic plan.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hoping to capitalize on it and help folks through that process.
And it's a long sale, you've told me.
Yeah.
What is the typical timeline?
It depends on the business. It depends on the seller. It depends on their age. I would say to you, we work with people probably 2 to 3 year range.
Yeah.
We get the businesses ready and then we put them on the market. And let me say it to you this way. It's not like selling a house. When you're selling a business, there's a lot more complexity to it, right? And so a lot of times that takes more than even a year at times. It can take up to 2 years depending on the size of the business and so forth. So, it's a long-term game.
So the underlying question, all this, you get paid when the transaction occurs. There's not a consulting fee that's being paid to you as you're helping them evaluate businesses.
That is correct. The only thing that we do offer, because we meet with a lot of folks that are trying to get prepared for the future, a lot of times they'll want a true valuation, which we can perform at our office. And so if they want to just do a clean business evaluation, and yes, they'll pay for that up front, but I can promise you it'll be discounted compared to where you'd go to a CPA or so forth. So that's a great opportunity. Outside of that, we're working on the come.
Yeah.
And we don't mind that. We know that the business is there. We get involved with, we sell good businesses to good buyers. That's what we like to do. And that's how it works.
And I can only imagine that reputation has to be a big part of this.
Absolutely.
Tell Trey Langus, how can people find you?
Oh, very easily. You can get me at 251-656-2100 is my cell phone number, and tlangus@tworld.com is my email.
Trey Galloway, how do they find you?
healthhutal.com.
healthhutal.com. Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
I wish
Cam.
you both the best. We'll be back after this break with final comments. This is Cam Marston in the studio with Cajun Mike. Cajun Mike, what's going on at E3 Pest Control? What you guys doing today that's different?
Well, what we're doing different is we are treating homes that have spray foam installation, and we're able to give them a full bond, whereas other companies are not able to.
How does the treatment work with the spray foam?
Basically, we spray the spray foam with Boar Care. Boar Care absorbs into the spray foam and prevents termites from landing on it and creating an above-ground carton.
Is there any restrictions or limits to how you can do this, or is it any home with spray foam?
Basically, any home with spray foam.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
Find me at 251-850-7378 or e3pest.com.
That's e3pest.com.
Hey, this is Charles Taylor with Natural Resource Consultants, and when I'm not crawling through the Alabama piney woods in the summer heat or driving down a dirt road in rural Alabama, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Very grateful to have both Trey Langus and Trey Galloway in the studio with me today, watching them interact, talk about the transaction, etc. I'm usually really good with, by the way, to keep John Thompson, the show producers, from reaching out for my throat. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Watching the interaction between these two Treys, talking about this opportunity that came up and how they worked together to make it happen, was a delight. I want you to find both of these guys. Trey Langus, if you're looking for a business to buy or sell. Trey Galloway, if you're looking for health supplements. And I have recently become an advocate of them based on a show last week with Brad Davidson, who taught me a lot about it. We're going to move on into the commentary on artificial intelligence with David Webb. David is a regular commentator on the show. He offers a point of view on artificial intelligence. Here we go with David.
While artificial intelligence, or AI, holds great promise for transforming industries and driving innovation, its rapid advancement also raises concerns about potential negative impacts on businesses and employees. AI advancement will replace job roles, leading to concerns about displacement and unemployment. For example, as AI algorithms and robotic systems become more widely accepted, and they will, tasks traditionally performed by humans, such as routine data entry, customer support, and even skilled professions like computer coding and medical radiology, could become completely automated. This will result in workforce disruptions requiring re-education or reorientation for those displaced employees. AI algorithms learn from vast amounts of training data, but if that data is biased or flawed, it can perpetuate discriminatory practices. For instance, AI-powered recruitment systems might unintentionally favor certain demographics, leading to unfair hiring practices. Similarly, AI-driven decision-making in areas like lending or criminal justice could compound biases and perpetuate perceived social inequalities. Businesses must carefully consider the ethical implications of AI and ensure that algorithms are trained on unbiased data and subjected to rigorous testing to mitigate discriminatory outcomes. The increasing reliance on AI will entail the collection and instant analysis of vast amounts of personal data, too. This raises concerns about privacy and data security. Breaches, unauthorized access, or misuse of data could become more prevalent. Moreover, as AI algorithms become more sophisticated, there is a risk of unintended consequences, such as privacy invasions through facial recognition technology or voice assistants capturing private conversations. Businesses will need to walk a fine line between utilizing AI's capabilities while safeguarding privacy rights. AI adoption requires significant investment in infrastructure, data, and talent. This could lead to the concentration of power in the hands of a few tech giants, creating economic disparities and limiting competition. Smaller businesses might struggle to compete, exacerbating economic inequality. Additionally, workers with specialized AI skills may command higher salaries, further widening the income gap. As AI continues to evolve, the business landscape will need to pivot and adjust on a dime to the massive changes that will certainly come. Mark my words, AI will ultimately become the most historical, monumental, and prolific thing man has ever created. It must be harnessed responsibly for society to benefit. The consequences of utilizing AI can be positive if administered with care, concern, and diligence, or it could wreak havoc and become incredibly dark and destructive. I suppose that it will all ultimately depend on us, the ones who created it.
Thank you, David. Heikki Malinen with Outokumpu said, artificial intelligence will change our lives even more than our cell phones have. Now, you can imagine the significance of that. Again, thank you, David. Always appreciate your commentaries. What's Working is produced by John Thompson with Ion Digital. Check him out, EYEON Digital. Find me on social media. You can find the podcast version of the show at whatsworkingcam.com. And let me tell you about advertising if you want to get involved. I'd love to have that conversation. We'll have another show next week, everybody. Thanks for listening. As you likely know, this show originates as a radio show broadcast across the state of Alabama, and it continues to grow in both radio listeners and market. After it's formatted for radio, we then turn it into this podcast. Please share it with those you think would find it interesting, and subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube page where you can leave messages and your thoughts and your comments, and I'll certainly get back in touch. Finally, if you're a fan of the show, please offer a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can find my book called What Works on Amazon.com. In it, I highlight the top 10 ideas from the first 200 episodes of the show. Mind you, they're not the top 10 best episodes, they're the top 10 best ideas. Many times the same ideas are brought up again and again by different guests, and we dig into those ideas in such a way that they'll be easily applicable for your business. Simply go to Amazon and enter my name, and you'll find What Works as well as my other books. Chapter titles include How to Find a Niche, Innovation, Building Teams, and so forth. To learn more about the workshops and seminars I offer, go to cammarston.com. There you can view clips of my work, view workshop titles, view my reviews, case studies, customer lists. It's all there. If you'd like a free copy of one of the chapters of my book, enter your email address at the bottom of the homepage at cammarston.com. And from that site, you can email me directly. I always love to hear from you. You'll also find me on social media. Find Cam Marston on all the social media platforms, and you may need to enter the numeral 1. There's one other Cam Marston out there, and that numeral 1 distinguishes me from him from time to time. So if you're unsure if it's me or not, enter that numeral 1 after my name, and it should do the trick. On a more personal and less professional side, I record weekly commentaries that air across Alabama on Alabama Public Radio twice each day on Fridays called Keeping It Real. They've won statewide and national awards. They're simple observations on the world as it goes on around me, and they're only a few minutes long. They're a passion. You can find them on the same podcast app you're using to listen to this. Finally, if you're interested in advertising on this podcast or the radio show, reach out. I've worked hard to cultivate a specific listener, and I can tell you all about them, and I have many different options for helping you reach them. Thanks again for listening. We'll have another episode available soon.